Charles, welcome back to Real Vision.
It's good to be here, Ash. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. You were last on, I believe, in December of 2017, my first week at Real Vision. So much has happened between now and then. You are one of the founding fathers of the space, co-founder of Ethereum. And if you could just give us the framework for how you think about this space, starting at the very beginning.
There's George Lucas likes to say that history doesn't repeat, it rhymes. And there's a lot of truth to that. So when you look at our industry, the industry really came from the internet. And the internet, the major thing there was that information used to be expensive to move. So it took time, effort, and money to move a book from Bob to Alice or to tell somebody something. Then this internet comes around, then suddenly emails here, we have the web browser, and magically you can just learn anything instantaneously. And the cost of moving information went to nothing. So because that became a thing, people started saying, well, what else can we teleport all around the world? We have all these siloed systems, for example, financial systems. It's really expensive and time consuming to move money around the world with remittances and wire transfers and these types of things. So for a long time, a lot of people were trying to create some sort of internet native digital currency that could represent value and just be teleported, just like email is teleported anywhere. And there were attempts as early as the late 1980s, the early 1990s, and there was pioneers like Hal Finney and Nick Szabo and Wei Dai and people like David Chaum. They even created companies in the 90s like DigiCash that were attempting to do this. But nobody had figured out a way to do it without involving some trusted third party, some central company that acts as a settlement and clearinghouse. And that's really not desirable in the age of the internet, because who is in charge of the internet? There's no one company, no matter how big, like Google or Microsoft, that if you take out, the internet just stops working. So they said, okay, eventually in 2009, Bitcoin came around, and Bitcoin basically proved that you could find a way to teleport value anywhere in the world instantaneously with no counterparty risk. It's like email for money. And then nobody really believed it when it came out. And it took a long time for it to reach a network effect. In the first year, it was so unstable that if one person stopped mining, like the hash rate would fall 50% or something like that. And the tokens had no value. When I came into the cryptocurrency space, we used to trade them on spreadsheets. Bitcoin was under $1. It wasn't uncommon for people to say, well, I'll send you 10,000 of these things because I have no idea if they're going to be worth anything or not. In fact, I remember there was I think it might have been a League of Legends, or there was some online game tournament where first prize was $500, second prize was $250, third prize was $100, fourth prize was $50, and then fifth prize was 200 Bitcoin. That was like the consolation prize. Thanks for playing. I mean, this is where we were. Then around 2013, Bitcoin got real. It reached $1 billion for the first time ever. The Cypriot crisis, where a government was just taking money out of people's bank accounts, it got people deeply concerned. Entrepreneurs started coming in, like Wentz Casares and others, and Silicon Valley showed up, and legitimate exchanges were created. And that was really the first generation. So we kind of had the proto generation in the 80s and 90s, and then in the 2000s, it was kind of the build up to it. And then the first generation took about 4 or 5 years to really percolate. Then at that moment, people started saying, well, hang on a second here. Bitcoin is blind, deaf, and dumb. It doesn't do much. It doesn't understand the outside world. You can only move Bitcoin. What if I want to issue my own currency? What if I want to program a contractual relationship, like I'm only going to pay you on Tuesday if you mow my lawn or something like that? Bitcoin didn't do any of that. So we tried desperately to try to add these functionalities into Bitcoin. There were projects like Color Coins, projects like Mastercoin. There were some altcoins to explore these things, but really we needed a moment like when JavaScript came to the web browser. Before that moment, you just had static websites. And then when JavaScript came to the web browser, then you had YouTube and Facebook. And suddenly you had these magical experiences that could be programmed in and interactive with the user. So it wasn't just you broadcasting, there was a notion of interaction. Well, smart contracts coming to the blockchain were exactly that. So with Ethereum in 2013, what we were thinking about is saying, how do we make transactions programmable? And then suddenly you can do peer-to-peer lending. Suddenly you can issue your own assets. Suddenly you can do insurance. Suddenly you can do all these things. So we call that really the dawn of the second generation, the programmability era of cryptocurrencies. And that led to the rise of the ICO, that led to the rise of DeFi, that led to all the things that we now see and take for granted in this industry. The problem is that that doesn't work at scale. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, before we go into what you're working on now, tell us a little bit about that time period. Obviously, you were one of the co-founders of Ethereum. You were very involved in it. Tell us a little bit about what it was like at the time, the sense of what you could potentially do with it, and how that process unfolded.
Yeah, I call it the accidental project. And the reason being is that nobody intended for Ethereum to really exist at the scale that it exists today, and had illusions that we were somehow going to be this $200 billion Leviathan that brings in an industry. It was more of a project of frustration. It's no coincidence that the Ethereum founders, all of them had either been building altcoins or building overlay protocols. And because these things were trying to compensate for things that were missing in Bitcoin. For example, Vitalik was doing work with the Color Coins people. Jeff Wiltshire was one of the core developers of Mastercoin. Gavin had been doing open source development for a while in the space. I had created BitShares. And so each and every one of us were looking at different things that we were passionate about, and we couldn't solve those problems with Bitcoin. And so the point of Ethereum was to basically be a proof of concept to show how to build a native smart contracting system that just works and it actually, people can build real stuff on it. So, we launched it in January of 2014, and we all had these T-shirts made. And on the back of the T-shirt, we actually showed you how to issue your own coin. And it actually had the source code on the back. I still have the T-shirt. I guess they're collector's items now. And it was such a revolutionary thing because, Mastercoin had raised $500,000 and spent 6 months of development work just to accomplish that. And then suddenly you could do the thing with enough code that it's on the back of a T-shirt to issue a token. So we were proving a point. Now, we didn't think for a moment that somehow, some way that this was going to then explode and launch all these industries. The hope was just to basically encourage the space to understand about programmability and its necessity. From my view, I said, well, there's a lot of things I'm very interested in. I cared a lot about economic inclusion. I care a lot about economic identity. And I said, well, if this technology is going to be any good, it should be the financial operating system for the world. And Bill Gates and the shepherd from Senegal has the same access and privilege and rights in the system. We've never had that in human history. Well, to do that, I need protocols to do that. And I can't do that with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is moving in the right direction. So my thought process was, if we built something like this, if it became successful, it will either grow to a point where we can start building that type of stuff, and then I can focus on that, or it will encourage the Bitcoin community to upgrade Bitcoin to do this, and then I can build on Bitcoin and do it. So I didn't really know which one was going to get there, but I knew that this was another step in the right direction. Now, we were not entrepreneurs. I mean, some people had business experience like Anthony Diorio and Joe Lubin, but for the most part, we were just guys in our 20s who thought this was a really cool idea. Let's go play around with it and we'll see where it goes. So we did everything wrong, but because it was such a powerful right idea, the project was able to be pushed in the right direction and kind of launch the DeFi and the ICO revolution and the token revolution and create enough imagination to bring millions of new people into the cryptocurrency space, which has now led to 1,000 flowers blooming and tons of really cool and interesting projects, from government sponsored to deep academic projects to more hacker-esque projects in light of the Ethereum project.
Hey, if you like this clip, be sure to check out the full interview and more only on realvision.com/crypto. It's 100% free. Sign up now.